agency. We're going to get right into it. We're going to begin with breaking news. Kevin Durant has requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. His desires right now, his preferred destinations right now are Miami and Phoenix. Chaz, your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when a player of Kevin Durant's caliber requests a trade, obviously it has, a chance to really have an impact on the league, and, who wins the championship next season. As for those two preferred destinations, I'm really interested to see, the type of packages that they can put together, because early suggestions give that Brooklyn wants somebody back like, Devin Booker, Bam Adebayo, which obviously those teams would not want to give up. They would rather, have Kevin Durant join their ready-made team. So I feel like, those two teams are maybe his, excuse me, they may be his preferred destinations, but there's probably, close to 10 other teams that could put together better packages.
Absolutely. And one thing that I want to point out before, there's going to be a lot going on today. We're going to keep you guys updated on all of the trades that's going to happen within the next hour and potentially the second hour of the Spoken Truth podcast. Free agency is set to begin at 6 p.m. So that's where some of those trades can start, becoming finalized, and people can actually start negotiating. Also, is great to point out that for Miami in the Bam situation is that Bam cannot be traded to Brooklyn due to Ben Simmons. Yeah. So because of, quote unquote, still on that rookie deal, having Ben Simmons and Bam on that team, that can't happen. So Miami is already behind the 8 ball. Yep. If Brooklyn wants Bam, because I would assume they will want someone of Bam's caliber. Due to Ben Simmons being on that team, I don't know if they're going to try to move Ben. There's the Nets are going to have to blow up this entire roster. Kyrie, Durant, if they want to start with Ben, then that's their prerogative. But I just wanted to throw out before I toss it back to you that Bam cannot be traded to Brooklyn while Ben Simmons is on that roster.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like that's going to have an impact. You said they're behind the 8 ball. I feel like, Phoenix might be as well, too, because, obviously they don't want to part with somebody like Devin Booker. But then also if they were going to sign and trade somebody like DeAndre Ayton, he's a restricted free agent, so he could sign an offer sheet with somebody else and, really force them to pay him. So, I mean, both of those teams I feel like are going to have to go through obstacles in order to get Kevin Durant. Like I said, there's a handful of other teams that I feel like would have, pretty simple packages where it'd be, a haul of draft picks, a few, good players, and they maybe will be able to try and sneak in and steal Kevin Durant. I mean, he has 4 years left on his deal. So
I think the thing that is so, and I wanted to do this show as soon as this news broke down, but we all have a lot going on at the moment. But one thing that I wanted to point out, Sean Marks, is that he's made it clear with the Royce trade that he don't want to start from ground zero again. Yeah. So you don't make that type of move if you want to start, basically building from the ground up again.
Yeah, and they have no picks because Houston has all their first round picks.
Yeah. They're going to demand a haul. They're going to want stars, plural. They're going to want multiple stars back for Kevin Durant. This is not we're going to give you 1 star, 25 game score, pair with a bunch of picks. They're not going to ask for that. They're going to want a haul for Kevin Durant. They're going to want players. They're going to want proven stars. They're going to want role players, bench players. They're not going to want the draft picks at this particular time. You rarely see a player of this caliber become available on the open market. He's made it abundantly clear. And I want to also point out, because there's so much news going around about this, Kevin Durant he intentionally made that decision today due to the fact that at 6 p.m., they can offer DeAndre Ayton the Supermax contract. That contradicts everything. So if Kevin Durant makes it his intention that he wants to play with Phoenix, DeAndre Ayton is not getting the Supermax. So he made it abundantly clear that this is the team, or this is one of the teams that I prefer to go to. Now it's up to you guys to try to make it work. You're going to try to package, campaign and a bunch of young players with DeAndre Ayton, to me, that's still not enough. But you're going to try to convince Sean Marks that that is enough. And I agree with you. I think a lot of teams can make better offers than what Phoenix and Miami can do. But those are his teams. I'm also hearing Philly. I don't know if Philly will throw in Thibault. I don't know if they will throw in all of those young assets to pair to get, Kevin Durant to get him to Philadelphia. But also with James Harden, I believe he opted out. He has the opportunity to opt in at 6 p.m. So he has the opportunity to actually take a little less money because if he opt in, he was getting paid $47.1 million next year. So he's going to be the second highest paid player in the NBA. So you have a chance to rebuild around that, but that's clearly not enough if you're going to try to fit Kevin Durant under your cap. Like, some player has to move. James Harden, I don't know if Philip wants to do that. I don't know if they want to package Harden, him be the center of a package and continue, bring all those young assets and picks. You're going to need stars. You're going to need picks. You're going to need the haul for Kevin Durant this go around. Like, what you saw with Paul George to the Clippers is ×2 on steroids. It's ×2 on steroids. What they got back for Paul George is not what they're going to look for with Kevin Durant. They're going to need more.
Yeah, I mean, despite him being a 34-year-old heading into his 16th season, I mean, this could be a historical haul coming back, depending on the package that they get. Just a quick one that I want to throw between you. If it was the 76ers offering somebody like Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, probably one more salary filler and then some picks. Do you think that would be better than, Phoenix's offer of possibly DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and a couple picks? Those are two offers that are probably going to be offered to Brooklyn.
But the only problem that I have with that is that I think DeAndre Ayton has a quite higher ceiling due to his age, has a higher ceiling than Tobias Harris, because I've seen Tobias Harris long stretches of his career not be that guy. Brooklyn is looking for someone like Zion.
Yeah.
They're looking for someone that's young, that is up and coming, and they have an extremely high upside. I don't think Tobias Harris' upside is as great as Ayton's because Ayton is so young. So obviously, I think Philly has to add it too. I think Philly has the better package. But if you talk about best player, Tobias Harris will be the best player coming out of that package. I don't think it's enough in order to persuade Sean Marks. It's all about persuading Sean Marks at this point. It doesn't matter what Kevin Durant wants.
Right.
It's about persuading Sean Marks, and I don't think he's going to budge for that.
Yeah, and that's the thing to really watch too, because with Kevin Durant having 4 years left on his deal, he doesn't have a lot of leverage in this. I mean, if they want to ship him off to somewhere else and say that's your problem, you try and figure out if he wants to stay with you long term. We're just going to get back the best package we can get. I mean, that's what I would do if I was Sean Marks. I would say if you're trading for a package like that from Philadelphia, it's probably more centered around the belief that you think Tyrese Maxey could become that player. But I would agree with you. I would say Phoenix having, DeAndre and Mikal Bridges, some picks, Cam Johnson, that's a pretty good deal. But I still don't know. It doesn't seem like the Nets want to give Kevin Durant what he wants, which is obviously, like we said, either Miami or Phoenix right now.
You are listening to the Spoken Truth podcast live on YouTube as we are covering the breaking news of Kevin Durant requesting a trade out of Brooklyn. Also, there is free agency that's going on. So we're going to be getting into some of those deals that has already happened. And as soon as that clock strikes 6 p.m., we're going to get into some of those as well. But right now, our coverage continues on Kevin Durant requesting a trade out of Brooklyn. Welcome back to the Spoken Truth podcast as we are bringing you breaking news. Kevin Durant requesting a trade out of Brooklyn. Now, we know that a lot of teams will be lined up, as Adrian Woj reported, that half of the league has already reached out to Brooklyn. To you, Chaz, what would be the best scenario for Sean Marks and Kevin Durant? Like, what team do you see out there can put the best package together that will benefit the Brooklyn Nets and benefit Kevin Durant.
Yeah, that's tough. I feel like there's, a couple of those packages that we mentioned that could be, really attractive. Out of the two that we mentioned so far, I feel like Phoenix is the better one. But, other teams could swoop in there, possibly like the Boston Celtics if they decided to part ways with Jaylen Brown. The Memphis Grizzlies if they wanted to give up Jaren Jackson and several other pieces. I would even say somebody like the Minnesota Timberwolves, with D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Jaden McDaniels, and they could offer as much as 4 or 5 picks or pick swaps. So one of those type of teams where they're kind of middle tier trying to take that next step, as well as another team like the Portland Trailblazers, which we saw Damian Lillard and use
not enough.
Yeah, I don't think that teams like that would have enough, but we're certainly going to see them try, I think.
Mm-hmm. Hear me out. I have 2 teams in mind. The second one is egregious.
Okay.
First one is the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah. Offer Zion?
Offer Zion.
Okay.
Offer Ingram. Offer all of the other young players and picks you have. And you pair him with CJ and you bring in another proven scorer. You build that nucleus. I'm not saying they're going to win a championship. But what I'm saying, I'm thinking as a general manager, if I'm Sean Marks, I'm thinking, what is the best bang for my buck? I'm not going to feasibly be able to satisfy Kevin Durant if I send him to New Orleans. But I have to think back and say, you know what? I'm going to benefit from having someone like Zion and Ingram. Now, I know it doesn't work. I know he's not going to go to New Orleans. He has his bucket list, and we all know that NBA, majority of the time, the stars run. If they want to go someplace, they're going to go. I also wanted to point out that and this is egregious to me because there's been so much going on in the last 2 hours, let alone the last couple of days. The Lakers and the Lakers general manager were in talks with Kevin Durant's camp about potentially going to Los Angeles. And the deal broke down when they did not want to include Horton Tucker in the deal.
I don't believe that.
But that's where I trust me, I've been looking at this. I've been making sure that this is credible. I've been looking into this. I want to bring it to you if it wasn't feasible in my opinion.
So the Lakers offered what?
I believe the Lakers offered Horton Tucker. I mean, they didn't offer Horton Tucker. I think they offered a lot of young assets. I'm not sure because I was juggling a lot of things at the same time. So I'm not sure exactly what their specific offer was, but it's hard for me to fathom the Lakers turning that down if that was the case.
I feel like the Lakers could very easily get in the mix for Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving.
Anthony Davis.
Yeah, but they would have to probably give up Anthony Davis.
There's no ifs, ands, but they're gonna have to get rid of Anthony Davis.
Well, I mean, if you were just trying to get Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant went elsewhere, I think you could maybe do Russell Westbrook for Kyrie Irving.
Yes,
but that would mean Kevin Durant going somewhere else. If you want it, I mean, I don't think there's any way the Lakers get Durant and Irving. I mean,
no way, no.
Yeah, but if you want to get one or the other,
at any point in time, do you package those two and send them somewhere else?
Durant and Irving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know that. I mean, that would probably be the biggest package in NBA history that you'd be getting back. So you'd have to take a look at it. I don't know how many teams would even be able to match those salaries, though. We'd have to see if any team would even be able to make that type of offer because to me, it seems like right now they're both going to probably, be in different places next year, but it'll probably be different, 2 separate trades.
Last team that I want to throw out there, and this is just for fun.
Yeah.
But they have the pieces. Golden State. Now I know. I know
they want any part of it.
I don't think they want any part either, but they have the pieces.
They do.
To throw out to Brooklyn. And I know no one's mentioning Golden State. There's been a little whispers about it, but obviously we know that they are the reigning defending champions. And I believe if I thought that him going to Golden State and those championships didn't mean anything to a point where I'm saying he has to go somewhere else to prove himself, they just coming like they're the reigning defending champions. You don't go back there and then all of a sudden, because that's even going to make it worse than the first go around.
Yeah, it would.
Because they're fresh off winning. So to me, that's just a fun one to throw out. They have the pieces.
Yeah, they would have one of the better, packages to offer, but I don't think either side really wants to do it right now.
If you're Sean Marks,
Mhm.
what do you want from the Raptors?
From the Raptors,
From the Raptors.
they own a lot of their future first round picks.
Yes, I think they have about 5 or 6.
For any of these deals, I feel like you need to be getting 3, 4 at least future picks, and probably a couple pick swaps at that. But then from somebody Toronto, I probably ask for maybe two players that are in the rotation right now. Somebody like Chris Boucher if you want to do a sign and trade, and then 2 other guys. OG Anunoby and maybe somebody else. But I don't know. I mean,
Do you include the rookie?
Scotty Barnes?
Yep.
If you're Toronto?
Yep.
I don't think you do. I mean, if he's the last option and the Nets are like, we'll give you this deal, but you got to include Scotty Barnes. You probably do, but I mean, Toronto, he's probably the number one guy in Toronto that you're trying to keep right now. I think they would rather give up Siakam than they would Scotty Barnes.
Switching from Kevin Durant, we're going to get back into Kevin Durant throughout the entirety of this show. From the Kyrie side of things, you have to believe that his trade value is going down a little bit. You just have to believe, based on everything that happened in the regular season, the amount of games that he missed, and him opting in, to Brooklyn. And I think it's about excess of 32 million, a little over 32 million that he's going to get next year. Do you see any way Kyrie plays another game in Brooklyn?
It would surprise me. I'm not going to say anything's out of the question, but it seems like both, Kyrie and KD are going to be somewhere else next season. I mean, not only did Kevin Durant request a trade, but then Irving has been on shaky waters with them throughout last season and during this offseason. We didn't even know if they were going to offer him a contract, a max contract, if they were going to do a sign and trade with him, if they were going to let him walk. I mean, he hasn't been on common ground with the Nets in years. So it would definitely be a surprise for me if he was back next season. What about you?
I don't see under any circumstances, if you get rid of Kevin Durant, that Kyrie Irving is back on your team.
Yeah.
Because the sole reason why you took Kyrie Irving is because Kevin Durant was coming to your team.
So it would have to be both of them deciding to, let's change our mind. Let's give this another chance.
I think first of all, I think Durant's gone. I think Durant's gone. So there's no way I believe Kyrie Irving is back in Brooklyn without Kevin Durant, because he was the sole reason why Brooklyn brought in Kyrie. They didn't want Kyrie. They wanted Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant sold it as a package deal. If I'm coming, he's coming too. So if that's the case, there's no way I see Kyrie back with I see him back with Brooklyn. Now, the thing that's so interesting to me is that the team that I really ideally thought that he could potentially go to and still could are the Los Angeles Clippers, but they just signed John Wall. What do you do? Like, what do you, in this instance, and we're talking about it as we're bringing you all this news. These are stuff that's being negotiated. It's happening right now. That could potentially still be a destination for Kyrie. What do you do if I'm the Clippers? If I'm Clippers management, do I trade John Wall? I mean, what do I do in this instant?
I don't think I would, honestly. If I'm the Clippers, and I think most people in that organization believe that they're a championship contender next season already at this point. So, I saw a report a little bit ago, they're not going to up in their roster to go get somebody like Kyrie, which probably means they wouldn't give up, several players, multiple guys that played last season. They're probably not going to want to give up somebody like Reggie Jackson or, Terrence Mann or somebody like that. I think they want to bring back the bulk of their roster. I think they believe with or without John Wall, they have a pretty good shot to win the Western Conference. And then, with the addition of John Wall, it definitely doesn't hurt their chances. So I feel like the Clippers, they're probably going to do their due diligence and, probably call Brooklyn. Why not? But it would surprise me if he went to the Clippers, just because they seem like they're kind of already set. I don't know if they need that, that unnecessary drama that Kyrie always brings.
You are listening to the Spoken Truth podcast, live edition, only on YouTube right now. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our podcast on Spotify and YouTube. We are going to continue our coverage of the breaking news of Kevin Durant deciding to request a trade from Brooklyn, but we're also just minutes away from the start of free agency. Coming up next on Spoken Truth, we will dive into some of the potential moves that's going to happen or we think going to happen and some moves that's already to happen. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Spoken Truth podcast. And there's been a lot to talk about, especially since the start of this show, but obviously through the entire world of the NBA right now. But right now, we're just 2 minutes away from the start of free agency. So I wanted to kickstart our conversation with some news that we attend that will happen. Jalen Brunson looks like that he's going to be leaving Dallas and he's heading to New York. What kind of difference maker is he with New York?
Yeah, that the worst kept secret, I think, in free agency was that Brunson was going to go to the Knicks.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we can probably talk about if there was some tampering involved in that, later. But I feel like, he's a significant difference maker. He's obviously not, one of those guys that you want to be paying, $40+ million to, or you would expect to compete for, an MVP or anything like that. But he's a fringe top 10 point guard in the league. He showed that, as the lead point guard last season when Doncic was out, that he could, be a 2010 type of guy. I feel like he's going to step in and be a pretty good fit with the Knicks. He does a lot of the things that I feel like a Tom Thibodeau type of point guard wants to do. And he has, some pretty good options around him that he's going to be able to facilitate around. So I feel like Brunson is, a good pickup. It's just, the fact that they had to do so much to move everything around, to clear so much cap space, multiple trades with the Pistons, clear like $30 million in cap space. It just seems like they had to do a lot to get, a player of his caliber, which I like Jalen Brunson. But when you do those type of moves, it's usually for somebody more, in the top 20 range. And Jalen Brunson is not that.
Absolutely. You are listening to the Spoken Truth podcast as we count down the start of NBA free agency. I like Jalen Brunson. I don't want to say that they overpaid for him, but he's not going to be that difference maker that the Knicks need on their roster. The Knicks have a very talented roster, and that's not me making it up or me trying to fabricate it. I think they have a very well-rounded roster. They just need that one piece that will set them over the hump. And the amount of money that they're paying Jalen Brunson makes it seems like he's that guy, and he's not. So I think he's a great scorer. I think he's a fringe top 10 point guard, like you said. But I do think there were better. The Knicks, I think to me they should have waited. Waited to the start of free agency. You knew you had him in the bag already. Just waiting it out another day or two to the start of free agency to see. Now that this breaking news is Kevin Durant, although you may not have a great shot at getting him, all of the teams, and I would suspect that free agency as it starts right now, everything will seem as a little slower as it would have if Kevin Durant didn't break his news, because now everyone is waiting to see what he does before they make a move. So I expect things to be a little slow. I expect to see little deals here and there, but the teams that's in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes or teams that believe that they can get him, I don't anticipate a lot of moving around today. As if you were to ask me that 4 hours ago, I would say we're going to see a lot of deals happen rapidly and fast. But since Kevin Durant has come out with this news, I expect people to wait to see what he does.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. And, Jalen Brunson, he's not that type of guy that, you want to be paying, like I said, $35-40 million. But I think what they got him at is about $27.5 million. About $110 million over 4 years is what I heard. That confirmation.
Sorry, I just wanted to correct myself. James Harden is making $47.4 million before he declined the opt out of his contract. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to talk about that too, because I feel like that was something really key for Harden to do. That allows them to have a lot more financial flexibility. It's probably going to allow them to sign somebody like PJ Tucker for about $10 million a year over 3 years. Harden is a guy that has decided to not do stuff like that in the past and just took the money up front, did the early extension, opted into the player option. This time around, it seems like he does want to, give that up a little bit to kind of get his guy in there and maybe make a run at the championship next season. So I feel like that is key.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was something that a lot of people were paying attention to see if he was going to do that, or if he just resort back to his old ways as only being about the money. So showing not him doing that makes that cap. It goes from $4 million, their exception that they had, to now that they can offer PJ Tucker $10 million, like you said, could offer him $6 million more because James Harden was willing to like shed a little bit of his salary. Now, granted, he's still going to be the second highest paid player in the league after Steph Curry, but I think doing that sends a message that, okay, I do care about having a great team around me. I do care about potentially winning a championship. Philadelphia has a roster that they could win a championship in the future, as soon as next year if everything falls their way. But I do think that says a lot about James Harden that he's willing to do that at this stage of his career, because usually as these players get older, they tend to take more and more money. We go back on Kobe, he took that $50 million 2-year deal. He had $2 million. I mean, for that 2-year, $50 million contract. And everyone is like, why would you take that? That's Kobe saying, I've done this for that organization. Now, I feel like that they are indebted to me. And they did that out of respect to Kobe, because they're like, basically, thank you for the 20 years. And I mean, he deserved it. Now, should he have taken a contract? Was it a bad contract? Absolutely. But when you're that caliber of player, you're able to take that and not feel guilty, versus in his younger days, he had to take that lesser load, to get that, get other players, to get Shaquille O'Neal in the trade, to get Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum under the contract for them to continue to win championships. James Harden is assuming that road to me right now. Is it going to be enough? I'm not sure, because the East is getting better. And to me, this is just my opinion. I think both Kyrie and KD will be out West at the end of the day. So the West, I think the balance of power will shift again, and the West will be the best conference next year. That's just my opinion. But I think it's good that Harden is actually taking that step forward.
Yeah, I think so too. And, as we were talking about it, it did allow them to sign PJ Tucker to a 3-year, $33.2 million deal. So
is that the first deal?
Yeah, that's one of the first. I saw that, the Jalen Brunson one was also announced. And then Anfernee Simons has reached a 4-year, $100 million deal to re-sign with the Portland Trailblazers. And then just into Bobby Portis, we were talking about earlier, possibly going to the Golden State Warriors. He's actually going to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks, 4-year deal, $49 million contract.
4-year deal, $49 million contract. Okay.
And then a couple of other quick ones to note too. We saw Bradley Beal. He did something similar to James Harden, Kyrie Irving, where they had a player option of north of $40 million. He declined his, but he's going to re-sign with Washington on a 5-year max. So he's going to be getting $50 million plus over the next 5 years. And then somebody else that just signed an extension is 2-time MVP Nikola Jokic. He's going to extend his contract for 5 years at $264 million too. So a lot of movement going on early.
Absolutely. So that Bradley Beal deal, I just wanted to point that out to guys. That's going to be a 5-year, $251 million max contract to stay with the Wizards. That's a lot. I think that bumps him to currently, I think I would have to do some research, but I think that bumps him to the highest paid player in the NBA. But I will have to look that up to make sure. But what is it? 250 is over 5 years. So that will put him over $50 million a year. So currently right now he is the highest paid player in the NBA. He just surpassed Steph.
Yeah, I'm sure they have it worked out where at the end of that deal, probably in that 5th year, I bet he's making probably $57 million or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
These contracts are going to be getting crazy over the next couple of years.
Yes. So the breakdown, I took it as a share of 250 and divided by 5. Now, obviously, there could be some caveats where, like you just said, he could be making $57 million in his last year. It increases. So right now, based on logistic math of just dividing the numbers right now, feasibly that he's making about $50 million a year, but we do know that those things alter, those contracts are swayed one way or the other. But is there any other news right now that we can say right now that we know that those trades are happening right now? Any breaking news that has happened in the last minute and a half?
I haven't seen any new ones. I did want to get your quick take. Do you think, paying Anfernee Simons, he was a restricted free agent, you bring him back on a 4-year, $100 million contract? Do you think that's overpaying him, or is that something that you would have done?
His upside is tremendous to me, but you have to ask what direction that Portland's going in, because it doesn't seem. I don't make that move yet. I think you can make a lot of these moves once a lot of the dust has settled. I don't think you come out the gate making that move. 4 years, $100 million. I don't know. I think that's a little overpaid. What do you think?
Yeah, as we're going to get tuned in here in a second too. I think it might be a little bit of an overpay, but he was a restricted free agent. So, if you let him go have meetings with other teams, then maybe you give him an opportunity to leave. Mm-hmm. Like you said, I don't really know Portland's direction right now, but I knew that, Anfernee Simons was going to be somebody that they were targeting to try and get back.
Yeah. So
what's going on, Tunde?
How you doing, Tunde?
That's interesting. I come in, you guys are talking about Portland. I expected Danny to still be yelling about Kyrie Irving and narratives.
we talked about Brooklyn for the first 25 minutes. We're going to get back to that to get your opinion, by the way. But I wanted to real quick touch on, because this happened a couple of days ago, but it couldn't have been finalized yesterday. It was finalized about around 6 p.m. yesterday. DeJounte Murray heading to Atlanta. First of all, I want to know what that means for Atlanta as far as their place in the Eastern Conference. Secondly, what are the Spurs doing here?
Tradition continues into the offseason.
Tradition continues into the offseason. We've got a white today.
Okay.
What are you drinking? What is that?
It's a wonderful $2.50 Aldi. I believe it's a Grigio today. 1,000% off brand. There's no way. This was probably they have the good place in the winery where they stomp the finest grapes. This is Outback where they're the reject grapes were.
Hey, he's repping our school though. If you guys didn't know, we all went to EMU, by the way. So
hey, shout out Imani Bates too.
Listen,
yeah, absolutely. We were talking about that in our newsroom meeting today, and we were asking why, but we'll get into that a little later on. We have a lot to talk about today, but Tunde, I wanted to get your thoughts on DeJounte Murray being traded to Atlanta, and what does that mean for the Spurs? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. I'll answer that. I will say real quick on the Imani Bates thing. I happen to know some people that know some people. I can tell y'all the whole story if you want it, but we can get into that later, like you said. Going back to the whole DeJounte Murray thing. First of all, if I'm Atlanta, I'd be calling the league sorry, I can't find the paperwork. Oh no, I guess we'll just have to keep all those picks to make a run at Kevin Durant. But that's just me personally. But seeing as I believe the trade was finalized as of not too long ago, looking at the clock, they probably can't exactly do that. I think DeJounte Murray is, if you were building a guard in a lab to play next to Trae Young, I think it would look a lot like DeJounte Murray. You have to account for the fact that realistically, Trae Young can't really guard anybody and is probably not going to get much better on that end. He's small, has short arms, and it's just not going to work. So you put an all defense level guard next to him. Perfect. Somebody else who has the ability to, be a playmaker and run offense. Perfect. Somebody who has the ability to push Trae off the ball so he doesn't have to spend all his time with the ball in his hand. Check. and somebody who has, legitimate NBA scoring ability as a primary guy. Also check. Although although I will say I think people got it a little twisted. I think Murray is, solid at that. I think people got it a little twisted with the counting stats on the Spurs. That was a bad offense and somebody had to score. So it was him. But we're not like, they didn't just acquire like, I don't know, Jason Tatum or anything like that. Like this is not that. But this clearly makes them better. I think the one thing that will kind of go a long way towards determining how this works is Trae Young willing and ready to like do what it takes to be a threat off the ball? He hasn't had to do that at any point in his career. Generally speaking, we've pointed to it being a thing of like, well, there's nobody else on the team or on the roster to create. And while I think there's tons of truth to that, I do think on some level that like the way Trae plays, where he is extremely ball dominant, the way he plays is like the way he prefers it. And for them to get where, obviously they want to go, he's going to have to change that. He's gonna have to pull back on that a bit. So that's the big thing to watch out for is like, just is he willing to do that? I'm also interested in seeing what this looks like for Atlanta because there's been tons and tons of rumors. There's not even really rumors. They want to trade John Collins. I don't really get their eagerness to get rid of him, honestly. He's a really good player with flaws that are pretty easily correctable. He's still young and he's like a 20-10 guy with who's an insane vertical spacer with legit 3-point shooting ability in a league where both of those things are extremely valuable skills from a four. I don't really know why they want to get rid of him so bad. But I know there's a market out there for John Collins, and I'm interested in seeing if they do get rid of him or what that ends up looking like. From the Spurs side of things, I think this is pretty clear. They're not trying to be a competitive basketball team next year. They're gonna let the bottom fall out. The 2023 draft is loaded at the top. Victor Wembanyama looks like I don't even know. I don't even think there's a comp for that. Yeah, but just a super elite prospect, probably on the Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson level. And that's, and obviously I think everybody knows about him. I see a little bit less with people talking about Scoot Henderson, who is that's
a fan.
You said what?
I said I'm a big fan of Scoot Henderson.
Yeah, me too. That is also an elite prospect. Yep. They don't call him Scoot for no reason. That man has rocket boosters in his shoes. Everything he does is so explosive. So yeah, really, really impressed there. So I mean, you get either one of those guys, and I'm assuming that's what the Spurs are kind of looking towards, is tanking and fully starting the rebuild. They'll be just fine. Like they've been the last few years like hovering around playing for like they've been toiling in mediocrity for like 3 years. It's very clear that they weren't anywhere near contending or status or really playing for anything significant at the championship level. This is the right move for them. So I like it from both sides, and they got pretty significant draft compensation from Murray as well.
Yeah, I understand it definitely from both sides. I feel like it's pretty clear that the Spurs are now deciding that they are going to go, full tank mode, try and get a top 3 pick probably this season and kind of start over. I think a lot of that goes back to the fact that DeJounte Murray decided not to extend his contract. I think it was a couple of months ago when the Spurs first put it on the table. and he decided not to. He still has 2 years left. So I definitely get the reason that the Hawks are interested in doing this. You got to give up 3 first-round picks, which is a lot, but you get back a 25-year-old, all-star point guard who's just hitting his prime and who has multiple years left on his deal at around like $16-17 million. So I think it's a good idea for both teams. Tunde, I think it's going to come down to exactly what you said, and that's whether or not Trae Young and DeJounte Murray together can coincide. Can they fit together? I think we're going to have to see Trae Young do something that he's really never done before, and that's really up his off-ball game, like you mentioned. Not only coming off, looking to score, but just giving up the bulk of, the usage rate. I mean, DeJounte Murray is going to step in and expect to get, a dozen plus plays where he's the main ball handler. And Trae Young has never really had to deal with that in his career so far. So I feel like if it works out, it's a great move, but it's something that we're going to have to wait and see. Can those two guys mesh together? Because I think they should be able to, but it doesn't always work that way, as we know.
And I mean, we said like Trae Young hasn't done that. We're not just talking NBA. We're talking back to his season at Oklahoma and back to high school. Like he's gonna have to play basketball in the way that he legitimately has maybe not played basketball, maybe ever.
Yeah.
All right, we got to move on here, guys. Breaking news, Victor Oladipo has agreed to a 1-year, $11 million deal to stay with Miami. Also, we're hearing right now that Phoenix, and me and Chaz, we were talking about this earlier, are not willing to include Devin Booker in any type of trade for Kevin Durant. Chaz, I want to start with you. What does this mean for that trade proposal from Phoenix? Now, obviously, they haven't formally created a trade proposal, but we are assuming that any trade proposal that Sean Marks will include Devin Booker.
I don't think it will. I think that's just something that the Suns are kind of trying to say. I mean, once you get something like that, you kind of say, these are what we need to get back, just so when a team calls you, they already know that that's on the table. That's something that you want. I think there is a way that Brooklyn could trade Kevin Durant to the Suns and not have Devin Booker in that deal. But obviously, with the reports, I think the I think the Nets are going to obviously push for that. That's going to be their number one option if they're going to make a deal with Phoenix. But I think there's ways to get around that. It's just you got to do some work. It's not going to be the starting point.
Real quick, Tunde.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's about to be expected, right? Like the dream here is to find a way to pair Devin Booker and Kevin Durant here. And from Phoenix's perspective, this is very clearly a situation that is going to, like, they can afford to have this drag out. They're fine. Like they can afford to have this drag out. If Kevin Durant is really dead set on not playing for, the Nets ever again, it's not unreasonable to think that at some point the Nets might be willing to accept a little less in a trade package than they're currently asking for. Whatever that might be, this is still pretty fresh. But this is crazy as hell. I don't think we've ever seen. I mean, KD has a 4-year extension that hasn't even kicked in yet. Like the next team that he goes to is gonna have him under contract for a long time. Like I don't know that we've ever seen somebody, a superstar, ask for a trade with this much. We would still be under team control for that long. So
no, we've never seen a superstar of this caliber demand a trade wanting out. We've seen superstars move teams, but LeBron waited to become a free agent. Durant just signed a massive extension. So
I mean, in fairness, I think this gets lost because he never did play on another team, but Kobe Bryant did request a trade from the Lakers. The Lakers just told him the Lakers just politely told him to go to hell.
He wanted to go to the Clippers, and that didn't happen. But I just think if that did happen, that would have been crazy. But I wanted to
Clippers
move.
franchise probably looks a lot different. Sorry, go ahead,
I wanted
Danny.
to move on real quick to some news that you talked about earlier, Chaz. Reigning back-to-back MVP, I should say. He agreed to a 5-year, $264 million supermax, which is the richest deal in NBA history. Your thoughts on the upside of the Nuggets roster as they get all of those pieces back? What kind of damage can this team do in the future?
I think this team has a chance to compete for a championship for years to come. I mean, obviously things are going to need to break their way. Guys are going to need to stay healthier than they have the last couple of years. But they have pretty good talent around the two-time MVP, like you mentioned, in Jokic. They got Jamal Murray, obviously Michael Porter Jr., and then they just recently made a trade for KCP. So, I feel like they have a pretty good roster. I don't know that right now they're better than, a couple of the other teams in the Western Conference. So I do kind of feel like they're probably one move away from maybe taking that next step, but you absolutely had to lock down the two-time MVP. I mean, making him the richest player in NBA history, or the biggest contract, I think is the right move to do. After winning back-to-back MVPs.
Yeah, I mean, I second a lot of what Chaz said. This is a team that can absolutely win a championship as the roster currently stands. Getting, this is provided that we have good health from Jamal Murray and, Michael Porter Jr. Even before we get into all of that, shout out to Nikola Jokic for having enough money to where his kids will never have to struggle again. That's pretty cool. He's a hell of a basketball player. He's come a long way from being the 41st pick in the draft and his pick being announced during a Taco Bell commercial to being a 2-time MVP with the richest contract in NBA history. That's objectively pretty cool.
41st pick to making $40+ million a year. I mean, that's insane.
That's a bar.
Yeah, that's insane. The things that he was able to, the things that he was able to do, like where he came from, his upbringing, and being 44 pick and being, right now, it changes, but being the richest, having the richest contract in the NBA history right now, that says a lot. So congratulations to him. Sure. I haven't been the biggest, as you guys know, I haven't been the biggest Nikola Jokic fan, but he definitely deserves his coins. Absolutely.
Yeah. For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. Getting back into it a little bit with Denver, though, I think the roster has significant upside. Chaz, you alluded to it. I really liked the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope trade for them. The thing Denver needed the most on their roster was probably perimeter defense. KCP does that at a super high level. He's a 40% three-point shooter who does a really good job playing off of stars, is a really good cutter, somebody you can have as a movement shooter. We got to see a lot of this skill set during his time in Los Angeles with LeBron James. He's an ideal fit next to Nikola Jokic. And then, they get Ish Smith back in the deal. That's whatever. Obviously, it's tough having to part ways with Monte Morris and Will Barton, but I'm a huge fan of Bones Highland, and I think that as good as Monte Morris is as a backup point guard, this just means more minutes for Bones, and it probably means that Bones takes over something resembling the backup point guard role. I think they'll be just fine. I think the trade is a net win for Denver. And I really like Christian Braun, their one of their first round draft picks. I think he's going to be in the rotation sooner rather than later. High upside on this roster.
Yeah, you are. Go ahead, Chaz. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say quick. I definitely think you're right, Tunde, about the emergence of Bones Highland. I feel like that allowed them to part ways with both Monte Morris and Will Barton. Will Barton had been there for 4 years. I think he was a fan favorite. He really liked Tim Connolly before he left for the Timberwolves. But you get somebody like KCP who does a lot more on the defensive end. than either, Barton or Monte Morris. I feel like that's, a really big pickup. And I think the Nuggets are in that conversation of maybe, getting to the Western Conference Finals next year.
Sorry, I had to plug up this laptop.
Oh, you're good. You want to move on to a new segment?
Yeah, you are listening to the Spoken Truth podcast live on YouTube as the start of free agency begins. Don't start yet, Chaz.
Boy, he got the auto tune on. I said, Danny got the auto tune on.
You said what?
I said you had the auto tune on because you were freezing and you sounded like a robot.
Oh, because I was trying to. My table that we're at, it doesn't move, so I have to adjust my entire fucking body to plug it in.
Yeah, that's that Ohio.
This is in Michigan, sir. Let's go. And I thought I stopped the video, but y'all just saw my nuts and everything. But oh well.
I didn't see that.
Oh, good.
No, it was just your shirt, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
You good?
Put some pants on. Hide your balls. Jesus
I'm
Christ.
at work. I definitely have on pants.
Then why are you talking about when you say your balls?
All right.
Let's go.
All right.
What's up, guys, and welcome back. Blah, blah.
Hold on. Restart it. Gangster Grills, you bastards. Run it back.
I'm a leave here at 6:45. Y'all can continue the show.
We got you.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
What's up, guys? What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Spoken Truth podcast live edition on YouTube as we break down all of the moves that's happening right now in free agency and all of developing news that has happened over the last couple of hours. Now, I wanted to jump back into this Kevin Durant news because Tunde was not here when we initially started the show. So, Tunde, I wanted to get your thoughts quickly on that Kevin Durant news and what does that mean?
First of all, my apologies for not being here. I am.
He's a slacker, y'all.
I'm actually in Washington, D.C., essentially working 2 full-time jobs at the moment. I have my day job, and I am also babysitting my 20-month-old nephew. Listen, man, parents of the world, I have all the respect for you. I love this kid. He's so adorable. I don't know how the fuck y'all do this every day. I'm exhausted. He never sits down. It's crazy. Anyways, on to Kevin Durant. What?
No words, right? No
yeah,
words.
I guess I get it. Well, that's the thing. We don't know what it is. What was the thing that made him decide to request this trade? Because it's been widely reported that he and Kyrie are a package deal. So Kyrie's not there. He's not there. But Kyrie opted in, which theoretically was Kyrie's signaling that he still wants to be in Brooklyn, and then he requests the trade. Which is interesting. Reportedly, according to Woj, they still want to play together, just not in Brooklyn. I don't know how the fuck they expect that to happen, but that's beyond me. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how they expect that to happen.
Yeah, we were talking about it before you get on. I don't even know what teams would even be able to make that type of offer.
Real quick, Malik Monk signing a 2-year deal with the Kings for $19 million. So the Lakers are losing some key pieces on their bench there.
I think Malik Monk is awesome.
He's replaceable though.
You said what?
He's replaceable though, but
sure. I think Malik Monk is awesome. I think he was, good for the Lakers last year, does a lot of things well. I do think that the Lakers have bigger needs than signing him. And ultimately, this was probably a good scenario for the Lakers, despite, all of the things he's able to do for them last year. They have the taxpayers mid-level exception available, and reportedly, they were going to offer him that contract. It's probably better that they use that to get just anybody who can, play defense at a high level on the wing. That's not Malik Monk. So, best of luck. It'll be fun watching him in Sacramento. They are stockpiling guards who don't play defense over there. That's going to be fun. They might be bottom 5 defense in the league next year. Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see. We were talking about Kevin Durant. So the big winner in all of this, as it stands right now, is probably the Houston Rockets, seeing as they still have 3 unprotected firsts from the Nets and 2 pick swaps. All of that starting to convey next year through 2027. But that also complicates this scenario for the Nets. You would, if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you want to get your picks back for they're going to want to get a lot of draft picks out of this, I would assume. But they don't own their own picks. That means they need to get actual good basketball players in return for Kevin Durant, because tanking, there's no incentive for them to tank. Tanking nets them nothing. That just makes this a really complicated situation for them. Like, where do you start? Like, what's the best player that's gonna be available in return for Kevin Durant? Because we all know Kevin Durant is in rarefied air across the NBA. So like that makes it tough to what is equal value for somebody that good? I don't know that it exists in a legitimate trade package for them. And like picks, like who knows how much picks will satiate them, because no incentive to tank, yada yada yada. Honestly, if I were them, I think there is I think I would be looking at I would call the Lakers. I would call the Lakers and see if
you must read my mind.
I would see if the Lakers are willing to do some sort of trade package centered around Anthony Davis. That'd be one team that'd be interesting to start with. I might call the Minnesota Timberwolves and see if they're willing to do a package centered around Cat. But like,
He will request a trade out of Minnesota. He was like, "Oh, go trade me. All right, let me request a trade."
Sure, but like, he wants to go to either Phoenix. Reportedly, he wants to go to either Phoenix or Miami. It's gonna be tough to make either. It might be tough to make either one of those work in a place where the Nets want to accept that deal, and the Nets don't really have an incentive to make sure he goes to one of those 2 destinations.
Let me throw this at you, Chaz. We're sticking to Tunde's premise on the Lakers. And the reason why I said it read my mind, because I'm scrolling, making sure that we're all caught up on free agency thus far, and like the breaking news. And the thought came into my mind, since this team, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, are considering themselves a package deal at this particular time, if I'm the Lakers, I got AD on my book. I have all these young assets, including Taylor Horton-Tucker. I have a contract that I'm trying to get rid of in Russell Westbrook. I'm thinking of a 3-team trade. I don't know who the third team could be. That Westbrook gets traded to that team, Anthony Davis get traded to Brooklyn, and Kyrie and Kevin Durant joins LeBron in LA.
I think Utah. I know you asked Chaz, but I hear my loud ass is about to butt in.
Yeah.
Utah.
You think Utah be that third team?
I mean, if you believe that the Rudy Gobert situation, if Utah truly believes that the Rudy Gobert situation, whatever, theoretical acrimony people believe there is between him and Donovan Mitchell, if they believe it's time to go in a different direction, that's, a potential third team to add in the deal. Utah gets, maybe Rudy Gobert goes to Brooklyn, Kyrie and KD, Rudy Gobert would go to Brooklyn, say Russell Westbrook goes to Utah, and I'm assuming Utah would probably want to buy him out of his contract, and then let him pick where he wants to go from there. And then Kyrie, or KD goes to LA. In that scenario, Kyrie and KD don't stay a package deal, but I just don't know how you make that work, honestly.
Yeah, to me, I don't know if there's a way to make that work. Just because, I mean, the Nets would be giving up Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. They would have to be getting back so much. Maybe,
but that's their goal, though, right? I mean, obviously,
but I'm saying, who can do that though? I mean, if you get back Anthony Davis, what else? Like, what else can they get that would be enough to give up Kevin Durant and
all
Kyrie?
of their young assets?
Well,
all of them. Like obviously, the Lakers will have to clear their roster.
The Lakers have no young assets. They have no young assets. So besides Horton Tucker and one 2027 pick,
it's Horton Tucker. The 2027 pick that they know they can trade, and then like Kendrick Nunn. Yeah, like the issue is
I think other teams have better packages.
I think other teams has better packages. I mean, to me, if you're at, I mean, I'm gonna just say what it is. To me, the team that has the best package to offer, we know he's not going there. The team that has the best package is Golden State. The team that has the best package is Golden State. Like young assets, proving stars. That's the team that has the best. Theoretically, if we're talking about logistics of like feasible teams that can give Brooklyn like what they want, all of those young players in Golden State, they can have them. Like all of the upcoming, throw Klay Thompson in the fray. Throw Wiggins. Like you can make it. I'm saying Golden State has the team to theoretically give Brooklyn what they want. Now we know that's not going to happen. So I'm just saying, like, the team that has the best package is Golden State. Unless you're talking about we're doing swaps, something for like LeBron or something. I mean, we know that's not. We're saying stuff that we know is not going to happen. Like LeBron versus Kevin Durant, a swap. I mean, stuff like that. We know that's not happening. But like legit, like teams that Phoenix, they're not getting rid of Devin Booker. They're about to offer this man an extension for $200+ million. Like, I don't know how Brooklyn wins in this situation, because you're not going to win anyways because you're losing Kevin Durant. But you have to demand the haul. Like, you have to demand young talent. You have to demand a star. You have to demand bench players. You have to demand picks, pick swaps. You have to Paul George ×2. And I said that earlier. Well, Paul George got in that deal and to go to the Clippers. They need that for Kevin Durant ×2. And I don't think no one really has the offer that Brooklyn will really want, unless I said Zion and all of the Young's assets, and you get another team involved. Like, I can see that happening. Houston got all those young picks. I mean, all those picks, all those young players. That's not happening. So I don't know. Like the Knicks, I mean, come on, the Knicks are the Knicks. Like, we go down the list. Boston is interesting. Boston to me is interesting. Because if you're telling me, okay, like I got Jalen Brown here, like you pair Jalen Brown with some other players, maybe get another team involved, maybe. Or you got Jason Tatum, like who, like if I get Kevin Durant, to me, I don't think I need Jason Tatum. Like I don't think it's going to work. But I would rather have Jalen Brown with Kevin Durant than Jason. That's just me. That's just my way of thinking. But
yeah, your way of thinking is wrong. But
I would rather. I think Jalen Brown will fit better. I'm not saying Jalen Brown's a better player, but I'm saying, like, why do I need those two players who have kind of similar-ish games playing with one another, like almost the same position? I don't need that.
Why is that bad?
Together though.
I just don't need that on my roster.
Having wing depth is
if we're being honest, if Boston is to make a trade, it's going to include Jason Tatum. They're going to want Jason Tatum. They're going to want him.
If you're Brooklyn, and then if you're Boston, you say, thanks, no thanks. But
if you're Boston, you say, yeah, you're not turning down Kevin Durant for Jason Tatum. You're not
the goal
doing
is to pair the two of them together, not
you'll be the foolish team of the 21st century if you turn down Kevin Durant for Jason Tatum. I mean, I get it. They're going to work better as a duo, but we have to talk like legit, like what's realistic here. And I don't know. I don't see a realistic partner for Brooklyn unless you're telling me Sean Marks is going to take way less than what he really needs to. That's the only way I see it working. DeAndre Ayton,
he might have to.
DeAndre Ayton and picks. That's not enough for Kevin Durant. Like DeAndre Ayton and players and pick swap. That's not enough. Like,
so you don't. I mean, do you think it's more likely that we get a trade where it's like 3 or 4 players plus 3 or 4 picks?
I think we get a trade for Kevin.
Like one big player.
I think we get a trade for Kevin Durant. It's just not going to be what Sean Marks wants. Like, it's not going to. He's not going to be what he wants.
I think you're right, but he has a lot of the leverage too because I mean, with 4 years on KD's deal, he can send him somewhere else if he wants to. He does not have to give him what he wants. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to give Kyrie what he wants. So,
but Chaz, tell me the team. Tell me the team. If you tell me the team, and I'll just be quiet and move on from the conference. Tell me the team that actually has a feasible offer. That if you were the GM of the Nets, you would say, you know what? I do this, even though I know it's not Kevin Durant. I'll take it. It's enough.
I haven't.
Chaz, sorry to interject. Before you answer that question, a quick note about the Paul George thing.
Yeah.
The reason why there was so much compensation for Paul George wasn't because the Clippers weren't getting. It wasn't because the Clippers were getting Paul George. I don't
get Paul George and Kawhi.
Yeah, it's because they were getting the Thunder were essentially giving them Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
And so they had to compensate the Thunder for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
I mean, but
why they ended up having to give them 147 picks.
I mean, but Kevin Durant is Kawhi plus half of Paul George. Kevin Durant is Kawhi plus half of Paul George. Like he's better than Kawhi. And if you're going to say Kawhi in a nutshell, you're going to say, give me half of what Paul George is. Kevin Durant is, I mean, obviously when you combine the two, no. But if you're saying, give me half of Paul George and all of Kawhi, Kevin Durant is better. Kevin Durant is better.
What is this, 3/5 of a man? I'm not arguing that one way or another. I'm just, just a note so we
can give me Kawhi. Kevin Durant is better than him.
Sure, I'm not arguing any of that. One way or another, you're saying you're right or wrong. I'm just, it's a note to make sure we got history right. That's all.
But I know. Real quick, Chaz.
It's for our viewers.
Absolutely. Real quick, Chaz, because you guys are going to continue our coverage, but I have to get out of here. But real quick, I want to get your thoughts on the team that you believe can give the best package. We know it's not going to be the package that Sean Marks really wants, but what team do you see out there that can, it's not the package that I want, but I'll take it?
I don't know. I haven't seen that package yet. I mean, I think
I'm asking you, what team do you think has that package?
That's tough. I think Boston might have an argument to be one of the better ones. If you could find a way to get Jalen Brown, Marcus Smart, probably another rotation piece, and then picks as well. That might be one of the best that you could do it like that. It's obviously not getting you that top 15, top 20 player that you might be getting with, Anthony Davis or Zion, like you guys mentioned. I think it's a lot more likely that they do something like that where they get 3 or 4 players in addition to picks than they are to get, give up Kevin Durant and get back somebody like Anthony Davis. That just seems far-fetched to me. So I think the Celtics have a pretty good package. I think the Grizzlies do as well. I think the Timberwolves would. I think, the Suns would. We talked about what Philly could offer, but none of these are like blowing you off. I mean, Sean Marks isn't jumping on any of these.
But what if I told you, and we talked about why Bam can't work. He can't be traded to Brooklyn with Ben Simmons because of their contracts and their situation.
Yep.
Jimmy Butler. If I start with Jimmy Butler and I build a package around Jimmy Butler with additional pieces draft picks. I get a third team involved. I give you some role players. I will have to believe that if they want Kevin Durant, they're going to want Hero, Robinson, and Butler. You telling me you would not pick up the phone for a package including Jimmy Butler, Hero, and Robinson with picks, with pick swaps?
I mean, I would certainly consider that one. I think that's one of the better offers. Do you think Miami does that? Because then, I mean, that kind of guts you. You're kind of left with Durant and Bam Adebayo, with not much else.
I mean, you have Kevin Durant is better than all of them, like combined.
I know, but I mean,
I get it. Like you will have either way it go. Like your team is going to be gutted wherever he goes. With 9 times out of 10, the team is going to be gutted. I mean, so you're going to have to put some pieces, after market. You only have to get some lower end talent to fill out your roster.
For sure. But I mean, both of these teams, both those preferred destinations, I mean, they assume that they're going to have to give up a lot, but they both think that they're going to be able to contend for a championship next season with Kevin Durant.
I mean, so, if you have Booker, Durant, and CP3, I'm not sure that wins a title, but I know that's the starting point. So now I'm building everything around it. I don't think that wins a title because Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, and I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's a winning duo. I know it's a winning duo, but not a championship winning duo. It's a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would be in the running, but
absolutely, they might have the best record again in the league.
Yeah, but if you give up Devin Booker in that deal, then I mean it's a similar thing to giving up Jimmy Butler. You want to pair Kevin Durant with the 3 or 4 players that you already have. I mean, if you can part ways with Tyler Hero, it's understandable. If you can part ways with DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges, I mean, you would obviously do that, but you don't want to give up, your first or second best player right now.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff at you guys, but if I'm Sean Marks and I'm looking at what Miami has, I'm looking at, okay, this Kevin Durant, the offer off rip starts with Butler, Hero, Duncan. Now, if you want to say, you don't want to give me one of those, okay, it starts with Butler, Duncan, and then we work our way from there. But I have to get 2 out of the 3. I have to, because the only reason we're saying Miami, because those are 1 and 2 Suns, and Miami are his preferred destinations. Now, obviously, they could trade him anywhere, but we're just going based off where he wants to go and see how they can get that done. I don't think, and I agree with you, I don't think the Phoenix, they budge when you say, okay, we want Devin Booker, or I don't think they give up Butler, and for that, they can't give up Bam, but I don't think they give up Butler either. I'm just saying, like, if you're telling me that you don't want to give up Jimmy Butler for Kevin Durant, you're just fools going. Like you're.
Well, I mean, it's not just like that, because if you're giving up Jimmy Butler, you'd also be giving up Tyler Hero. You'd also be giving up
one player. But I'm also looking at you're giving up your best player currently, right now, and you're adding a top 3 player in the world.
Yeah, but I mean, if you could,
and you're talking about the other assets.
Well, I mean, if you could just switch Jimmy Butler and Kevin Durant 1 for 1, obviously Miami does it, but that's not what it would be. It would be Kevin Durant and a lesser team around him. Which
so what is your drawback? Your drawback is that's too much.
If I'm Miami,
yeah.
If I'm Miami, yeah, I'm really trying to keep Jimmy Butler. If I'm Phoenix, I'm really trying to.
You're trying to get
Devin Booker. I mean,
so you don't want to include Jimmy Butler at all in the trade?
I mean, I would, but I would have to have a plan around too. Maybe make that a 3-team deal where I'm also getting back another role player. I mean, I feel like there would need to be more if I'm giving up my best player, my leading scorer, and Tyler Hero, and then also a bunch of picks. It just seems like Kevin Durant would be in Miami. It would be one of his preferred destinations, but I don't know if it would be a very good, championship culture around him, because they wouldn't have a lot of talented players anymore.
Yeah, you are listening to the Spoken Truth podcast live on YouTube and on Spotify. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube and our Spotify account. All you got to do is type in Spoken Truth podcast in your search engine. So you guys go pick up the coverage, because I got to get back to work.
Yeah. Sure.
Let me know how it goes. I know you guys will kill it.
Will do. Sorry for the quiet. Sorry for going radio silent over here. My nephew just ran up.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
He just ran up in the room screaming for me. So,
yeah, he bad for sure.
No, he's just 20 months old and energetic. He's
Yeah,
learning how to
absolutely.
process emotions and feelings.
All right, you guys kill it.
We'll
All right,
do it.
talk to you later, man.
Talk
All
to
right,
you later.
man.
Tunda, you good to keep going for a little bit longer? Or?
Yeah, we can keep going for a little bit longer. It's also funny as hell because he's learning 3 languages, and right now he definitely speaks Spanish the best, like
Really?
by a wide margin. So
What's his name?
Rafael,
You say he's 20 months old?
20 months old. Yeah.
Wow. How long are you there for?
What's the day? Another week and a half.
Okay, you've been there for a while, right?
Yeah, I got here on Wednesday as we did the draft. I was here for the draft, and then I got another week and a half here until my sister and brother-in-law get back. Then I'll hang out with them some and get up on out of here and head back to the Bay.
Gotcha. Are you ready to jump back in?
Give me like 10 seconds.
All right, no problem.
All right. Should be ready now.
All right, cool. Welcome back to the live free agency episode of the Spoken Truth podcast. I'm Chaz.
I'm Tunde.
And we just lost Danny, one of our co-hosts, as he headed out to work. We're going to continue on for maybe another 20, 30 minutes or so to talk about free agency. Tunde, before I catch up the listeners on a couple of the deals that have been made, did you want to mention anything real quick?
You said we lost him like
Yeah, I know. RP to Danny. He went to work.
Yeah, he just had to go do other stuff. You said we lost him. Like, you remember when Gordon Hayward like broke his ankle and then Dwight Howard posted a picture of him and was like, "Lord, carry him now." you have to like, Lord, carry him now.
Yeah, we lost Danny, but he will be back, thankfully. Like Gordon Hayward, probably. But we'll jump back into a couple of these free agency signings. I did want to get your take on the Milwaukee Bucks. They added a couple guys, re-signing Wesley Matthews and Bobby Portis, in addition to getting Joe Ingles. Do you have any takes on what Milwaukee did? Obviously, they're one of the championship contending teams, and they kind of bolster that depth, I feel like, at the start of free agency.
You said they re-signed Bobby Portis?
Yeah, re-signed Bobby Portis on a 4-year, $49 million deal.
Oh, wow. Okay. You're getting my you're getting a genuine, honest live reaction to that. Because I had heard that Bobby Portis was telling them he was going to leave and that the Warriors looked like his likely landing spot.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it was a play to try and get, a 4-year deal. That's just my thoughts on it. I mean, I was expecting Bobby Portis to go somewhere like Golden State or another contending team for, a 1 to 2 year deal. To get 4-year, $49 million out of Milwaukee. That's a pretty big contract.
That's a great contract. That's a great contract. And I mean, we've already seen it. Bobby Portis is an ideal fit for that roster, with the shooting and the fact that he can survive defensively, can survive in switches, is big enough to battle on the glass. Also, this is the human component of it, but like it's probably tougher to leave a place where you've won a championship and essentially an entire city of people was screaming your name specifically at the top of your lungs in important games. And he probably doesn't really want to leave Milwaukee, and I can't blame him for that either. I wouldn't, and if I were in his shoes. Shout out to Bobby Portis for getting the bag. From indefinite suspensions to indefinite money. You love to see it. So that's a nice one. Joe Ingles, another player that theoretically fits in really neat and tidy on that team. provided he heals, provided he heals well from the ACL tear, which at his age is, a question. But those are good deals. There's one more you mentioned, I think I'm missing.
They also re-signed Wesley Matthews.
Oh yeah, I mean, good deal. Honestly, didn't like from just a pure player perspective. Thought it was a bad decision for the Lakers to let him leave the roster. Yeah, Wesley Matthews is a classic 3-and-D guy. Again, a guy that can guard up and down the lineup and slots in really nicely with that roster. So,
yeah, I mean, I feel like free agency is, a lot of the talk is about those top, 5 to 10 type of players, but so many of the top, couple of teams in the league are just looking to fill out depth, looking to fill out their bench, looking to add veterans, guys like Joe Ingles, who have played deep into the playoffs, know how to be in a system, can knock down an open shot. And then obviously Bobby Portis, everything that he brings to the table. I feel like it was really important for them to lock down him for 4 years. So I think the Bucks, even though it's not any splashy news, any big headlines, but I think they made a couple of big decisions that are going to keep them as one of the top tier teams in the league. I also did want to mention that a couple other re-signings, Patty Mills staying with the Nets, Nic Batum with the Clippers, and then also Marvin Bagley back to the Pistons on a 3-year deal. Do you have any thoughts on any of those three?
All probably good signings.
Yeah.
Patty Mills may be a little Patty Mills is one where you guys might have heard Danny talking about redundant players. I don't think you can have too many 6'8" primary shot creators, guys who can legit get you like 20, 25 to 30 a night and are, high level playmakers. Like, I don't really think you can have enough of those guys on the roster at all. But I definitely think you can have too many 6-foot guards. And, the Nets might have one too many 6-foot guards with Patty Mills and Seth Curry. All that being said, Patty Mills is still a really good basketball player. So,
what about Nic Batum back to the Clippers? Before you got on earlier, me and Danny were talking about, the Clippers making a move to get John Wall and what else we thought they needed to do this offseason, since I think we all agree that they, have a championship window into next season. Did you think Batum was going to go back, and then how much do you think he helps going forward?
I think he helps a lot. And I also think from, listening to the comments he had made about the Clippers, it sounded pretty clearly like he didn't want to leave. So, it doesn't surprise me that he ends up re-signing there. I think the John Wall acquisition is really good and makes a lot of sense. We'll see, what that looks like. John Wall hasn't, we just don't know what it's going to look like because he hasn't played basketball NBA basketball in a while in a game. But, it's not because he wasn't capable of doing so. It's, for better or for worse, Houston asked him to sit out so they could focus on his future. And, he was willing to do that. Shout out to him for being a mentor to the young guys over there in Houston. On the court anyway. If you're on the internet the way I am, people talk about the way Houston Houston, they didn't run no plays, they didn't have no vets. It was just young guys and vibes over there. I'll never forget, there was a video of the Rockets being in the timeout, and Kevin Porter Jr. was ordering a custom grill, for your teeth, a custom grill from a guy, one of the famous jewelers who was sitting behind the bench. I had never seen nothing like that before in a real deal NBA game. That was crazy. But shout out to John Wall. I still think he's got, some left in the tank, and we're gonna see a quality basketball player in LA. So
Yeah, one of the other guys that we talked about near the top of the show was Jalen Brunson. I think it was by far the worst kept secret in free agency that he was on his way to the New York Knicks. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Obviously, there were reports that he was considering meeting with Dallas to re-sign, maybe Miami. But it seemed like, for weeks now that he's been headed to the Knicks. So what are your thoughts on him getting reportedly, I think it's $104 million for 4 years?
I think there's been a lot of talk about well, let's start first about, you said talk of him meeting with the Mavericks, and then I know there was talk of him meeting with the Heat, which is funny that there was talks of him meeting with the team that he was currently employed by.
It was all facade, wasn't it?
I mean, it was like the worst facade in the history of facades.
Yeah.
But it was all clearly just because, for whatever reason, the league chooses to selectively enforce their tampering rules. Mm-hmm. And like what they did with like the Lonzo Ball and Kyle Lowry acquisitions, where they find the Bulls and the Heat, even though we all know that nobody waits until the free agency window is officially opened. It wouldn't make any sense to do so. So I think all of that was just, you leak that stuff to cover your ass, basically. And then you can be like, oh, Jalen Brunson, he's agreed to sign with the Knicks. We all know what really happened. So from a basketball perspective, y'all know I'm a huge fan of Jalen Brunson. I see a lot of people laughing at the money he's getting. I think people forget that, like the cap keeps going up, and so contracts aren't quite what they look like. Like the cap is going up again for next year. The cap keeps going up next year. Shout out to the Golden State Warriors for continuing to, lose, for blowing multiple closeout games in the NBA playoffs. That legitimately might have had something to do with it. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, basically, the Warriors earn more money from home games than any other team in the league, and that revenue gets shared back with the league, and in turn, the cap gets affected by how much revenue the league has. So it legitimately might have had a small effect. We're talking like maybe a couple hundred thousand a mil on how much money everybody gets to spend now. Anyways, all of that being said, Jalen Brunson's contract is completely reasonable to me. He's going to be like the 40th, somewhere between like the 40th and the 50th highest paid player in the league. That feels about right for the level of player he is. He's getting the money of like a high-end starter. That is basically high-end starter that's like sub all-star level. That's exactly what he is as a player. So, I mean, this is fine. They definitely kind of moved heaven and earth to make it happen. That's something I think a lot of people are having a tough time with. I think the Nets, the Knicks. I think my slight issue with it is that, all of these moves I think are okay in a vacuum, but knowing that Tibbs is their head coach means that we know realistically that they're like just locking themselves into the play-in more or less, and that's not what you want. It's tough because it's like Quentin Grimes will probably still won't play as much as he should. Emmanuel quickly isn't going to start or get starters minutes like he probably should. Like, I think it's time for them to just like let Jalen Brunson run with the young guys, and it's Tibbs. That's not going to happen. He's probably still not going to play Cam Reddish, even though they traded a first for him. So, we'll see what it looks like. There are other pieces there for a good NBA basketball team. We'll see if those guys get put on the floor.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. I think just when people saw that Jalen Brunson was reportedly going to get, north of 100 million, it started to kind of freak people out for whatever reason. But, he's going to be paid around that 40th player range, between the 10th and 15th best point guard, which is exactly where he is. It may seem like a lot to give him 27, 28, nearly $30 million a year. But it's really not with where the cap is going. And it does sound, Woj just tweeted out that he is going into a meeting with the Knicks right now. He does have an offer from the Mavericks for 5 years, $106 million. So I guess there is some chance that if the Knicks don't offer something around that, or probably even more, then he's at least threatening to go back to Dallas. So I think it's a done deal, but it does sound like he is headed into the meeting about now.
I think it's a done deal too. I think this is all just to cover their butts.
Yeah, I think it's been a done deal for a while. I mean, obviously, we know their connections with, Sam Rose, Leon Rose, Tom Thibodeau, Rick Brunson rejoining Thibodeau's staff for, I think, the third time. He's had this connection with the Knicks really going back his entire life. And I feel like, it's been clear that he's heading in this direction for the last few weeks, if not months. It's just a matter of how much money is he going to get.
It's crazy how much Tom Thibodeau refuses to work with anybody he hasn't worked with in the past. Like, yeah. anytime Tom Thibodeau gets hired somewhere, it's just a matter of time before Taj Gibson finds his way on that roster, or Derrick Rose. I don't know what blood oath the 2011 Bulls took, but they can't stay away from each other. It's crazy.
They can't. They're family forever, but. It does seem like a Tom Thibodeau tradition to also wear out his welcome as well. Like, if this season doesn't go as planned, he's probably, he could very well be fired next offseason. He's probably going to be on the hot seat throughout this year, depending on how the team actually does look. So
why wait that long?
Yeah. So, I think it's good to bring in Jalen Brunson. I think it's a good idea, but this doesn't mean anything for the Knicks. It doesn't shore up anything. Like, there's still a lot of roster movements that they need to make, as well as potentially replacing Tom Thibodeau. So, I think it's a good move, like you said, in a vacuum. I think another one of the issues was how you mentioned that they had to go through so much to get him. When you do that, when you make multiple trades, when you unload Kemba Walker, when you unload Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks to the Pistons, I feel like those are moves where you're kind of thinking you're going to get a top 20 type of guy. Maybe that's not necessarily the case. Maybe you just do those type of moves for, whoever you feel like wants to play in your system and is willing to do it. And they think Jalen Brunson is a good enough player to do it. So I get it. It was just more of the optics of it, how much they had to go through to get, the 12th best point guard in the league.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. I did want to get your take on something that happened with, last night, or I guess the incident was a couple nights ago with Miles Bridges. We don't have to actually talk about what happened because I haven't heard of many details on the actual situation. But, how is this going to impact his free agency? Him, turning himself into the LAPD last night for, I believe it was felony charges of domestic violence. So we'll see, where that goes. But it was reported that he might get up to a max contract, and there hasn't really been much news on who's interested, if the Hornets are going to want him back now. This is definitely a story that we have to continue to watch as it develops. So what are your early thoughts on that?
My first thought is I think when we talk about an issue like this, we do have to actually talk about the issue at hand. Ultimately, the person who is most affected by domestic violence isn't the perpetrator, it's the victim.
Yep.
So, hopefully the alleged victim is all right. Hopefully she's all right. Or as all right as can be.
Right.
I don't get it. I just don't get it. You were literally 24 hours away from a life-changing bag. I don't get it. It's like before this I was always kind of really somebody who kind of appreciated Miles Bridges' demeanor. I like the music he put out. I really fucked with the music he put out. I thought he was the best rapper in the NBA. All of that. I think I also did, just talking to some people that I know, I did say that as cool as it would, like, as much as I would like Miles Bridges in a vacuum, I would like Miles Bridges to play for the Pistons. Like, I really like his skill set and like things he offers as a basketball player. But just looking in from the outside, I kind of got the sense that he might not be somebody who, like some guys talk about, like they go home and like there's all these distractions that pop up, as a professional athlete. And that only gets magnified when, you play near where you're from. That's not something that everybody can handle. Kind of looking in from the outside, just had a rough sense that Miles Bridges might have a tough time with that. I feel like, that's probably like I might not have been mistaken in that hunch. I don't know. I mean, this can't do anything good for his market, I guess, if we want to talk about basketball. I don't get it. Yeah, I don't get it. I kind of have a loss for words with that one.
Yeah, me too. I mean, when I saw that news last night, it was kind of a gut punch. I mean, we wish for everyone in this situation. We're gonna have to watch where that develops. Obviously, like you said, it's gonna have an impact on where he goes in free agency, but we'll bring you more, when we know about that situation as it comes. I also did want to get your quick take, if you don't mind moving on. Lonnie Walker just signed a deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. I assume it's on the veterans minimum.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. So I want to get your take. I think that's a good pickup too. What do you think about Walker going to the Lakers?
You just saw what I think about Lonnie Walker going to the Lakers. Yeah. I'm a fan of Lonnie Walker as a player. He gives them youth, which they didn't have previously. He gives them youth and athleticism and scoring at the guard position to go along with, at least theoretically, shooting. I love it. That is the guys like that are players they need to be targeting. Lonnie Walker. I know Mo Bamba could potentially be had for the taxpayers mid-level exception.
I believe Mo Bamba re-signed.
Did he re-sign?
I think so. Yeah, I'd have to confirm that, but I think I saw that. But
okay.
Yeah. No, I definitely think you're right, though. I think, I like Malik Monk with the Lakers last season. I thought he was one of their better players, really gave them that scoring punch. But, you let him walk, you replace him with somebody like Lonnie Walker, who I think gives you, more of a lot of those same things, but just a little bit, he's bigger. He's a little bit better of a defender. He can play multiple positions. He's not stuck like, Malik Monk is kind of in that 2 role. So I feel like, I assume it's on the veterans minimum because I think that's all they really had to work with. So I think that's a pretty good pickup for the Lakers to add Lonnie Walker. I don't know, how much it does for their championship, contention or anything like that. But I do feel like that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That is, that's promising right there.
Yeah, and we're gonna get out of here pretty soon. I did want to get your take on a couple other signings and happenings around the NBA. Looked like there were a couple other guys that re-signed, including Nic Claxton. Let me try and find a couple others. What do you think about Nic Claxton going back to the Nets? Obviously, that roster is in flux. So we don't know if they're going to have Kevin Durant. We don't know if they're going to have Kyrie Irving, but they still decided to bring back both Patty Mills and Nic Claxton.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are 2 good basketball players. So exciting for them. That makes me, but I like Nic Claxton. Remember when they were playing DeAndre Jordan minutes over Nic Claxton because Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant wanted that? That shit was crazy. But yeah, shout out to Nic Claxton. That's a good basketball player. Always going to be somebody who, as a big, just has a little trouble with the some of the bigger bigs in the league. But as an athlete, as a switch guy, and kind of with his versatility, good basketball player. Glad they brought him back. Think he's theoretically he's a good fit on that roster, but we have no clue what the roster is going to look like in a month. So, Lou Dort just got 5 years, $87.5 million.
Yeah, that was the one I was going to bring up to you next. I thought Lou Dort was one of the kind of most underrated guys available on the market. They bring him back. How big of a piece is he going for with a team that it seems like they really have this, a clear direction where they're going. They have a lot of young talent, and Lou Dort is definitely part of that. He's a 3-and-D guy with, I feel like, a good amount of potential.
Yeah, I mean, Lou Dort is, Lou Dort is, I'm struggling to find the right words to quantify like how good he is defensively. It just looks like no fun. He makes trying to score the basketball against him just look burdensome. No one will ever bully him. No one will ever you'll never just move him out of the way. He's built like a middle linebacker. And an old school middle linebacker, not the fucking, the modern linebacker that can play in space and coverage. He built like one of the linebackers that used to play in the Big Ten and wears the necklace. Meet me in the A gap ass physical profile.
Right.
But he just makes scoring on him look so hard. And there's a legit NBA offensive player in there too. I wasn't as high on him as people were initially as a prospect, but I also thought it was crazy that he went undrafted, where because I thought he was like an early second round guy and he somehow went undrafted a few years ago. So really awesome to see that he's really, really found his footing in the league. Guards at a high level, has the ability to get downhill, make things happen. You can't help but be impressed with the defensive ability. And there's, something resembling a legit NBA scorer in there, even if he should never ever be anything resembling a first option. At face value, I think when you just look at it, it kind of sounds like a lot of money, but I have a sneaky suspicion this one ages pretty well. I have a sneaky suspicion this one ages pretty well.
Yeah, I think so too. What did you say? It was 5 years, 87.5 million, comes out to about 17.5 million per year on average. I mean, I think he was making less than like $2 or $3 million this year. So he was on a bargain deal. I think it's good to bring him back. He's exactly the type of guy that you would like to play off the ball. He plays defense, like you said. He has good upper body strength. He moves his feet well as showing an improvement to, knock down perimeter shots since he's came into the league. So I really like that pickup. I thought maybe somebody was going to be able to sneak in and steal him away from the Thunder, but I think it's a good idea for them to keep him and continue to build that core. They have, 5-6 guys that I really like now on that roster.
Yeah, they're going to have a little one of the things they'll have to go through is they've drafted a bunch of guys who have extremely similar skill sets, and I don't think that is a bad thing. I do think that it's going to leave them with a little bit of sorting out to do as far as roster construction. They'll have to find out ultimately, who's staying, who they're willing to build around, who they might let walk, or who they might be letting, might be trying to trade for assets. Real quick, I don't know if you saw this, but the Ringer had their draft comps for players. They said that Trevor Keels from Duke was Lou Dort without the elite defense.
Oof, I don't know.
What the hell is that?
That's taken away his best attribute. So
sorry to get on be on my Jeff Van Gundy real quick, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Can we all agree to not do that? Be like, yeah, this player, like with player comps, like this player is this guy. If you take away the thing that makes that guy himself, like
Right.
that's not. Yeah, he's Steph Curry without the shooting. Then you're not Steph Curry. That's a completely different basketball player. And it's even worse when you do it with guys like, and again, I know I talked up Lu Dort as a scorer here, and he's got some perimeter shooting ability now. He's worked really hard on it. But like nobody, Lu Dort is not out there because of his perimeter shooting, or he's not really out there to space the floor. He's not really out there because he's a primary shot creator. He's out there because he's impossible to score against him in one-on-one situations. Like that's Matisse Thybulle without the on-ball defense. That's like the thing he does. It might be like one of the only things he does. Like what are we doing?
Was it Kevin O'Connor that did that one?
It was the Ringer, so I believe Kevin O'Connor.
Yeah. I generally like KOC, but sometimes with those player comps, I feel like some people it will sometimes be about the player skill. Sometimes like that one seems more about just a body type.
Sure, they have pretty similar bodies.
But when you're doing a player comp, it's usually more about, how they look on the court. And Trevor Keels and Lu Dort aren't similar players, even though their body is, might be.
Not similar at all. I mean, normally, I don't know that the Ringer always does great player comps, but they normally will give you like some of this guy, shades of this guy, but with a little bit of this guy, but a little smaller. All right, that's fine. And they'll normally give you like 4 player comps. All right, that's fine. But this one, it was literally just Lu Dort without the elite defense. And that's like, that don't make no sense. It's not as bad as, they definitely aren't as bad as the Kendrick Perkins player comparisons on Draft Night there. We gotta stop having people who don't watch the players that are in the draft talk about them. And like I don't even blame Perk, because they ask him to do coverage of NBA games poorly, but they ask him to do coverage of NBA games. I don't think there's enough time for you to do that, at a high level, and then also cover the draft at a high level. There's not enough time. There's not enough time for me to do it. I don't know everything about every guy. There tends to be some people who I just know a little less about, because, if you're saying you're doing it all, you're lying.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to get your quick take on one more thing, which was the Utah Jazz hiring Will Hardy, 5-year deal. Did you have any thoughts on that before we get out of here?
See, the whole thing I just went on when I was like, you can't know everything about everything. I can't say I know a ton about Will Hardy. He seems to be a guy who is well respected around the league. People in Boston seem to really love him and swear by him. Always cool to see somebody get a shot at something that they probably dreamed about doing for a while. Past that, no, I don't have many opinions. I don't know what Will Hardy's preferred strategies are going to be. I think the most interesting thing will be like whatever, the new, collective of minds is running the Utah Jazz. Do they want Rudy Gobert on the roster? I assume that's something we'll find out in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, with Danny Ainge having, kind of calling the shots now in Utah, I'm not surprised that he brought over somebody, from the Celtics, although I believe Hardy was just there the 1 year, a lot of prior experience with the San Antonio Spurs. So, we'll see how he fits in. I think you're right that it's more about the roster and how they build that out, whether or not they move off of Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell. We saw them trade Royce O'Neal earlier to the Brooklyn Nets. So, obviously, the Jazz are going to, their roster is going to be in flux probably all offseason. But I do think bringing in Will Hardy, I think he's a good coach. I don't know that, if he's going to be better than Quinn Snyder, who I thought is also a very good coach. So I don't know. I think, like you said, it's more about the roster. But did you want to mention anything else before we get out of
here? Nothing from me. Happy free agency, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely going to be obviously a lot of deals to come in the coming days as well. We've had a lot to talk about today, but tons of deals are going to happen in the next few days, as well as trades, throughout the offseason. We got Summer League coming up. So we'll be back for other shows. I think we're going to do a couple offseason shows with the next season starts in a few months now. So we'll be back. But thanks again for watching the Spoken Truth podcast, free agency live show. If you like what we do, you can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Twitter. Just search the Spoken Truth podcast. You can find all of us there. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Chaz_post23.
And you can follow me on Twitter at KingTunde25.
All right, cool. Thanks again for watching, everybody. And